Something is happening in the Middle East right now that nobody, and I mean nobody, saw coming. And it's not what you think. We're not talking about ground troops rolling across some disputed border. We're not talking about fighter jets screaming overhead. What's unfolding is way more dangerous than that, because it strikes at the very foundation of what keeps a country alive. People are packing up and walking out. The economy? It's hemorrhaging. In just the last few weeks alone, more than 100,000 citizens have reportedly up and left. And listen, not from Gaza, not from the West Bank, from Israel itself. And what's driving this mass departure isn't just the roar of incoming ballistic missiles. It's the slow, suffocating pressure of an economy that's coming apart at the seams. What we're looking at here is a completely new kind of siege. The weapon isn't a bomb aimed at a military compound. It's a precision strike aimed straight at a nation's wallet. This is the story of how a wave of missile attacks has set off a chain reaction, insurance claims stacking up, corporations heading for the exits, economic shockwaves rippling outward, and it could very well reshape the entire power structure across the Middle East. Now, if you really want to grasp what's going on, you've got to look past those familiar shots of Iron Dome interceptors blazing across the night sky. For years, decades even, the conventional wisdom was that the next big war would be decided by armies going head-to-head on some battlefield. But this is a whole different animal. This is an asymmetric fight. Nobody's trying to grab territory. The real target is a nation's psychological endurance and its economic backbone. And the first real shot in this new kind of war didn't come from some armored division. It came from the Jerusalem Post, Israel's own English-language newspaper of all places, and the numbers they laid out were brutal. In just the first 11 days of this escalation, Israel's tax authority got slammed with more than 9,000 damage claims. Now, don't just glaze over that number. Every single one of those claims is somebody's home with a crater in the ceiling, somebody's business reduced to a pile of debris, somebody's family car twisted into junk. Let me walk you through what the actual damage looks like. According to that same report, more than 65,000 buildings took hits. Just sit with that for a second. That's not some abstract figure on a government spreadsheet. That's thousands upon thousands of families who can't live in their own homes anymore. That's the cost of finding them somewhere to stay, of rebuilding what they lost, of entire lives just frozen in place. But here's the number that really knocks you sideways. The vehicles. Over 10,000 of them gone. In a country as compact and packed with people as Israel, a car isn't some kind of luxury. It's how you get to work. It's how your kids get to school. It's your connection to everyday life. You wipe out 10,000 cars and you're not just trashing metal and glass. You're kneecapping how an entire society functions day to day. The sheer scope of this destruction points to one particularly nasty piece of hardware, the cluster munition. We're not talking about one big warhead designed to level a building in a single blow. The missiles used in this campaign are built to pop open mid-flight and scatter dozens, sometimes hundreds of smaller bomblets across a wide swath of ground. Picture a single missile sailing over a city. Right as the defense systems scramble to knock it down, the thing splits open and unleashes a shower of explosives raining down on streets, parking lots, neighborhoods full of families. Each one of those bomblets, weighing maybe a kilogram or two, is practically impossible to stop once it's released. The Iron Dome was engineered to take out a handful of incoming rockets. It was never built to chase down hundreds of tiny fast-falling submunitions. And that's exactly why roughly 600 missiles were able to set off more than 42,000 separate siren alerts across the entire country. Every single bomblet that hits the ground is another moment of sheer terror, another damaged address, another insurance claim. And right here is where this whole thing pivots from a physical fight to an economic one. Insurance companies, they're basically the canary in the coal mine when it comes to a country's stability. Their entire business model runs on calculating risk. When those risks suddenly become unpredictable and catastrophic, the whole machine locks up. The flood of claims coming in for wrecked buildings and destroyed vehicles adds up to liabilities in the billions. Now sure, you might figure a national treasury can absorb a few billion in payouts, But this goes way beyond the government cutting checks. This is about the private sector, the big multinationals, the companies that are the lifeblood of any modern economy. They're watching these numbers pile up. They see the trajectory. They run the math on their own offices getting hit, their supply chains falling apart, their employees too scared to show up for work. And then they make a cold, hard business decision. Reports are already surfacing of major firms pulling their money out, divesting before the losses get even worse. And here's the thing about capital. It's skittish by nature. It hates uncertainty even more than it hates taxes. And that kicks off a brutal downward spiral. The missile strikes cause physical destruction. That destruction generates mountains of insurance claims and a growing sense that things are falling apart. That perception triggers capital flight. When companies bail, they take the jobs with them. The shekel starts sliding. Suddenly, importing food and fuel costs more. The government has to borrow at steeper interest rates just to cover reconstruction and defense spending, which puts even more strain on the national budget. The economy starts buckling under its own weight. Some analysts are now saying it out loud. They're calling this a road toward bankruptcy. Ground zero for this economic earthquake is Tel Aviv. It's the country's financial engine, its tech capital, and that makes it the most exposed target of all. When sirens start screaming over Tel Aviv, they're not just disrupting some city, they're disrupting the nerve center of the entire national economy. The startups, the venture capital outfits, the high-tech corridors, this is where Israel built its economic miracle. But try sustaining a miracle when your workforce is spending half the day huddled in bomb shelters. The concentration of damage claims coming out of the Tel Aviv area tells you something very specific. This economic warfare has a deliberate strategic aim. Hit the country where it hurts the most, not the military bases, the financial heart. And then you get to the human side of this. And honestly, this is what tells you just how deep this crisis really goes. For generations, the story of the Jewish people in the Western imagination has been one of resilience against displacement, building a homeland after centuries without one. But now we're watching that story run in reverse. Reports say more than 100,000 people holding dual citizenship have cashed in what amounts to their ultimate insurance policy. They left. They grabbed that second passport, that fallback option of a life somewhere else, and they walked. And this right here, this is the most devastating number of all. You can rebuild a damaged building. You can, given enough time, coax investors back. But when your own people lose so much faith in the future that they choose to leave, that's a wound that doesn't heal in years. It takes generations. And it sends a message to the rest of the world. The safest place for your family, for your children, is no longer here. So where does all of this leave us? The shooting war is one piece of it, sure, but the shadow war, the economic war, that's only just getting started. If this rate of destruction and capital flight keeps up, the real red line nobody's talking about isn't some nuclear facility. It's a credit rating. It's the moment when the cost of borrowing money to defend the nation outpaces the nation's ability to pay it back. For Iran, this amounts to a strategic win without ever having to conquer a single inch of ground. They've shown their missiles can reach every corner of Israel, not just the emptier border regions. They've proved they can get through the air defenses, not by sheer volume, but with technology specifically designed to outsmart the defensive systems. And they've demonstrated they can inflict economic damage that echoes far beyond wherever the warheads actually land. The rest of the world is watching, and the calculations are shifting. The Abraham Accords, the normalization deals with Arab states, all of that was built on a foundation of strength and stability. But strength and stability don't come cheap. If Israel starts looking more like a liability than a partner, if it turns into an economic drain instead of a high-tech powerhouse, those relationships are going to face pressure like they've never seen before. The real turning point in all of this might not come from some peace deal hammered out in a European conference room. It might come from a cold, ugly realization in the boardrooms of New York and London that this small, embattled country has become a bet that just doesn't make sense anymore. The missiles keep falling. But the real fight for Israel's future? It's happening right now, claim by claim, dollar by dollar, in the quiet, desperate math of its own economy. And in that fight, there is no Iron Dome.